Got it. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. You're being part of the Virginia Women in HPC fall meeting that we had today. Our topic is Women in HPC and IT Leadership Roles. My name is Gladys Andino, and I am with the University of Virginia. And I am so excited today to moderate the panel. And our panelists today are Robin Bryan, and she is the AVP for Information Technology and CIO at James Madison University. And we also have Corinne Picataghi, and she is the Chief Officer at William & Mary. And I am so excited to have you all here. Our first speaker today is going to be Robin. And the way how we're going to manage, we're going to give time to Robin and then a time to Corinne. And we have, a list of questions for the panelists. But I want to really encourage everyone that is attending here today to please post your questions either in the chat or mute yourself when we are in the QA session. Thank you. With that, Robin, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Sure
we
can.
can.
Excellent. I did slides because I need to stay focused. So I have a hard time, and I'm going to keep to my 15 minutes. I kind of did this around history to technology, and it dates me to say what a long, strange trip it's been. If you're not of my generation, you may not understand the reference, the Grateful Dead. Just a little bit, first of all, about JMU. We just attained R2 status in January. So high performance computing is in its infancy here. We aspire to much more. But we do have a data analytics practice. We're not exactly as data centric as I would prefer, but we're moving quickly in that direction. At information technology at JMU, I won't read all this, is quite a bit, 130 people. I report through the CFO. I partner tightly with the Dean of Libraries and with our Vice Provost on research. We have some major diversity initiatives in progress on campus. We did a climate study, which was interesting to say the least. We have a task force on racial equity that's given us tons of recommendations. The university just hired a new vice president for DEI. We have a compensation commission that's very busy. We are experiencing a lot of hiring challenges. I'm sure many of you are. We're struggling to recruit particularly diverse applicants. We don't typically get them. We get a lot of folks who need H-1B sponsorship, which has been problematic in the last few years, as I'm sure you're all aware. But we have a new information technology major, which we're working very hard to try to get a more diverse student body as part of that. As far as my background goes, I came from a working class family. I'm old. I was born in 1959, so I went to college in 1977. So that'll kind of give you some perspective. I had a father who believed in independent women, which is very unique in where I grew up. In fact, he told my mother that if they could only educate one child, it would be his daughter, because he wanted me to be able to be independent. And I think I exceeded his expectations. I wanted to be a doctor when I went to college, and I ran into a course called organic chemistry in my sophomore year of college. And folks were so competitive that I realized very early on that if it was that competitive in undergraduate, that there was no way I wanted to go all the way to medical school. But at the time then, people used to say back then, major in something you enjoy instead of, major in something you can get a job in and things like that. So I majored in history. There was only one computer class offered at my undergraduate institution, and I hated it. It was cards, and it was taught by a physics professor, and there was nothing about it that I enjoyed, which was kind of interesting considering where I've ended up. I came to JMU and majored for master's work in modern European history. Because I was from a working class family, I had to work. So I got a job as a part-time computer operator. Now, again, let me date myself and tell you that I was processing cards, loading tapes, running batch processes. And so I only did that because it was night and I could go to school during the day. But in 1984, personal computers arrived on campus here at JMU. And I was one of the few people who could talk to the people on campus. IT was very male dominated, God's on the hill kind of mentality. And, you know, people were so amazed by technology at that time that, you know, they were nervous and it made them, you know, very nervous. So the head of IT came to me and asked, would I be willing to take a full-time job and work with folks on campus to help take away their Selectric typewriters and roll out access to the student system. We used a terminal emulator back then. And so I was responsible for that and downloading access, and I learned DBase, and I did SneakerNet, running little disks all over campus to try to help folks do things. I left IT in 1992 and became the associate registrar. Part of that was because there wasn't really a place for me in IT anymore. And it was, you know, very still difficult to make any movement. I was in the registrar's office until 1994, when a group of users revolted against IT and issued a university at risk report, which said that, you know, the systems needed to be replaced. As a result, we procured the PeopleSoft applications and agreed to be part of, I've got my slides out of sync, so ignore me, PeopleSoft student system beta. So I led the functional side of the student system beta. Then probably 96, I went back to IT. And the head user, who was also the associate controller, asked me to be the IIS coordinator, and that was integrated information systems. That was the project that was brought forward to the university, which was all those PeopleSoft systems, that beta, the things that I've talked about. From there, I was asked to take over the developers and became the director of information systems. From there, I became the executive director for information systems as my boss took on the AVP role. Then I was the deputy CIO, and for the last 18 months, I've been the CIO and assistant VP for IT. At JMU, my current focus really is strategic planning, funding, IT efficiency, reengineering Madison, which is a very big digital transformation project that's going to replace essentially every major central system we have, ERP, identity access management, major data analytics effort is part of that, and introduce university-wide CRM. We also have a major Office 365 modern workplace initiative where we're going to merge our tenants. Our students are in a separate tenant than our faculty staff, do more in terms of desktop management with the Microsoft tools and improve security and governance. I'm very focused on academic affairs because that's a gap we had before I took over. I did a listening tour and trying to rebuild relationships with the main reason that we're here. Very much an emphasis on communicating to campus. Obviously, security is part of the life of anybody who's over IT, trying to recruit and retain employees and focus on work-life balance. That's unusual. When I did the PeopleSoft implementation, we worked for almost 5 years, 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. So, you know, the world has changed significantly since then. I want to just share, based on that weird kind of projection, how I got here. Is one of the big things they teach you in history is if you don't learn from it, you're destined to relive it. And I have kept that in the back of my mind all the time because I went through that user revolt and know that if you're not meeting the needs of the people that you work with every day, they can do without you, they can put you out of the way. So I always try to keep that at the forefront. speaking to a group like this, where you're probably very highly educated in technology, I would emphasize that people with a liberal arts education can really offer a lot to what you do every day. It has opened doors for me and for others that I know. And so I had to put that plug in. Collaboration and active listening is exactly what I think are the keys to my success in higher education. That I listened to people. I didn't never assume that I knew that everything was okay. I built consensus. I would create groups that I would work with closely so that folks felt they had a voice and that stakeholders were part of anything that I tried to do. I know I've never been a firm believer in technology for technology's sake. And that's because I've always tried to apply it. How can this make us more efficient? How can this make us serve students better? How can this make us make better decisions? So it's always within those contexts that I have addressed technology. I have, for many times in my career, been the only woman in the room. And there were some things I did just to be, adamant. I refused to wear dresses. I always wore pants. I had to have a tougher skin. There were times that things were said to me way before the era we're in now that it wouldn't have mattered if I'd have complained about, but I took it and never let them get me down. I was always assertive and I was called names for being that. And at one point, I hope that that's not the situation that you live in today, but it wasn't always appreciated. But like Elizabeth Warren, I persisted and was successful in doing that. And also I was very direct and have always been kind of a big believer in thoughtful honesty. So folks knew that if I could help them, that I would. They would trust me, and that if I couldn't help them, I would explain to them why, and they felt like they really had clear answers. For me, networking is key. It has made all the difference. The people who promoted me and gave me the most opportunities were people you would least expect, and people I would have never expected to be supportive of females in the workplace. But they were watching, and you never know who is watching you. So those opportunities came to me because I always just persevered, worked hard, and folks paid attention to that. I questioned everything. I had a person tell me early in my career that I needed to be in the military and learn to do what I was told and stop asking questions. But again, I persisted and continued to ask questions, even though it wasn't always appreciated. Women in particular can be very adaptable, and change is inevitable. So I think, we do a good job in technology because we can balance those kinds of things. And I've always very strongly, as I said earlier, Dana and other females have always been there for me. Women need to support each other, and groups like this one matter. So my final comment is just this. It's how we raise up others. And I have spent a lot of my career diversifying teams, adding females into IT, working to diversify teams beyond just gender to others. It's more of a struggle here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia to find that diversity, but I find that a diverse team is the one that has been most successful for me. And I'm done.
Wow.
Is that what you wanted, Gladys?
Yeah, no, it's just perfect. Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you for emphasizing that, that we do struggle a little bit with diversity, in the field that we are in, in the area too. But that's why we are thriving through this program, Virginia Women in HPC, to create, that space and that environment where we can work together, right? Where we can be in a place of reaching down to bring others up with us. And I so much appreciate your talk. We have a set of questions, and just excited to get to that point, but I'm going to give it right now, Corinne, the opportunity to speak to all of us. Thank you.
Sure. I'll be honest. So I knew we were doing questions and answers. I thought this was discussion. I did not prepare a slideshow on my background, but as we can draw from Robin's. But I'll talk about a little bit. I'll talk about the differences. So unlike Robin, I had a computer in front of me from a very early age. And as I was growing up, I was skipping class to spend time in the computer room, in my high school career. And at that point, we were looking for problems to solve. I remember my teacher tossing a DOS book on my desk. It was like 3.1 or something. It was like, you should read this and just learn it. And I was like, all right. And I came from a very rural community in upstate New York. Graduated with 70 kids in my high school class. As class president, I can still name them all. No stoplight, no fast food, but in a lot of farm community surrounding, and you really needed to have a driver's license when you were 16 to have a job because you couldn't walk anywhere to work. And one day the special education teacher came into the computer room and was like, can you do something to help kids comprehend the driver's manual, because they can't pass the test. And if they can't pass the test, they can't contribute to support their family. And so multimedia, as it was called in the early 90s, mid 90s, we thought, sure, we'll make a multimedia version of the New York State driver's manual. So we did, and presented it at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and it ended up in every public library and public high school in the state. And I remember at 16 going to my first convention as a speaker, talking about this innovative work at the time and how we animated the driver's manual and made that content a little bit easier for people to comprehend and learn. And ever since then, I've been fascinated by that. So I worked a little bit. I thought I was going to go to the University of Pittsburgh as pre-med, did 3 semesters, decided I hated it, so I quit. And did a semester at community college. That didn't really stick either. So I thought I'm just going to work for a while I figure this out. And I was still doing some stuff with that company. We made a company on the side out of that driver's manual. So I ended up working for Corning, Fortune 500, as a help desk person, and quickly became leader of the help desk, a team of all guys, all older than me. One was could age appropriate to be a parent to me. And they didn't really like that I became team lead, but it was all right. We succeeded. We did great things. And I spent a lot of time in Windows environment. From there, I moved, I feel kind of lucky because I spent time in manufacturing there, Fortune 500 at Corning, then hopped over to small private SCSI peripherals company that did value add of SCSI tape drive storage backup solutions. And that was really fun. Started as on the help desk there and moved to a Q&A or bench test manager. Every female at that business was required to wear a dress or a skirt. And like Robin, I said, if you want me to take that job down on the production floor, I'm not doing it. I'll wear a pantsuit every day, but I'm not wearing a skirt. So I was given the only exception in the building. And not long after, they set the rule: if you wear a suit like Corinne does, you can wear a pantsuit to the female. So that was fun. And then somebody convinced me I wanted to apply to William & Mary. And I didn't think I did. But 22 years later, here I am. I am grateful that a colleague recommended me for a position at William & Mary and convinced me to apply because I really enjoy solving higher ed problems. And we have a lot of them. I should say challenges. I shouldn't say problems because that sounds negative, and they're not all negative. Some of them are really fun and exciting. And so I've been here ever since. I finished an online degree before it was cool at the University of Massachusetts, and then got my master's from Virginia Tech. So I feel like in every position I had, somebody gave me a chance based on potential, not experience. And that has helped me succeed in my career. And I absolutely try to do the same thing with those around me, is you recognize, you cultivate, you help others, and be everything they can be. And together, that's what makes the team awesome. So that's kind of my background and how I ended up where I am. But Gladys, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Corinne. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your experience. And I guess the first question that I want to ask you before I go through, the whole round and waiting for the audience to also ask some questions in the chat or on mute. So you talk about something really important right now, right? People give you opportunities based on your potential and not so much about the experience. So what is the advice that you can give us to this community and how we go about spotting those potentials, right? Even though that we might see that they, it doesn't show in paper that you had those many years of experience, but how do you go about looking into that potential and nourishing that?
Right. I think in this crosses over into what Robin said, she displayed in her own behavior some, and that is, who's asking questions? Who wants to know more? I often use the analogy with my team. I say, I've used this in several examples. I said, there's multiple ways to explore the ocean. Some people will scuba dive, right? And they'll just, they dive deep, they uncover the rocks, they lift them up, they want to know what's everywhere. They want to really get in there and see what it's all about. And others snorkel. They kind of float along the surface and check it out and say that's cool. And we need both of those people. But the people who want to scuba dive and get in there and figure it out, those people often stand out to me as they're looking for the challenge. They really want to understand and know how it all fits together and what is the value it brings. And just observing that behavior and then facilitating the growth opportunity. So growth doesn't just happen on its own. You have to, what project could I give this person that meets their skills and interests that will help them go to the next level? And it's very deliberate. You have to figure that out and create that space. I also am very transparent with my team. I know that I have people who report to me who don't want to work in IT long-term. And that's okay, because who cares, right? They can be the best worker they are when they're with you, and you can still help them achieve whatever those goals are. And those contributors, sometimes those people are the greatest contributors. So I have someone who wants to work in student affairs. Great. What are the IT student affairs projects I can come up with to give that person that gives them experience there, but is also helping me get work done? Because that's at the end of the day, we have to get work done. And so it's being creative, it's being deliberate, and making it easy for your people, your team, to say, what are their interests? What do they want to be working on? What's exciting to them? Because when people feel fulfilled and satisfied and challenged and all those things in that way, you're more successful. So that's what I say.
Thank you. Thank you, Corinne. We have one question right now at the audience, and I want to give priority to that. And this one is from Jackie. And the question is, how did you know when to stick out in a job and when to move on? And this is for either of you, for either Corinne or Robin. When do you know it was time to move on?
Well, the biggest thing was when I was in IT the first time, and the reason I left and went to the registrar's office is some of those hurdles and some of those egos that I was running into. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to move that way. It was obvious. You could see people almost sabotaging you in a way. And so, I decided I liked higher ed. When I came to JMU, I never planned to stay here for 38 years, which is what I've done. So I was, unhappy, trying to figure out what else I was going to do. Was I leaving JMU? And found this opportunity in the registrar's office. And I thought, okay, I can actually apply the technology to something that, will help me. And honestly, then I was at the right place at the right time. So things started to fall in for me. And like I said, I had those opportunities very much like Corinne. I always worked harder than they really asked me for. I worked to jobs that I didn't necessarily have. And I was lucky in that the rewards came from that. I don't know what you think, Corinne.
For me, most of the times I've left a job. Well, so I haven't had that many. I mean, I that Corning, the small private, and William and Mary, they're like the only places I really worked. One was geographic, and coming from cybernetics to William and Mary was about a personal goal. So I was working, we did overnight shipping and service, but mostly government contractors. So device would UPS, we'd get it the next day. We had to turn it around the same day. So we were the last one to ship. So we worked till late at night, like 8 p.m., and I in my personal life, I wanted to start a family and knew that, a 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. job isn't ideally suited to that. And so that was really what got me to apply to the William and Mary position. But what I would say overall is when you have a goal, if you don't think you can achieve that goal where you are, maybe it's time for a change. And I don't think that necessarily has to be outside of the organization, but maybe create an opportunity in the organization. So when, I've moved around and I've had different titles at William and Mary, there was no CTO before I became that. And part of that is because I helped identify how that could help William and Mary, but it also was something that I was interested in doing. Like, have all these teams report to me, because I think, that would be very personally rewarding and fulfilling and cool, yet also we can achieve these goals for the university. So I would say, look for opportunity. Life is too short to feel trapped somewhere. I mean, create a space or find a space where you can fulfill the goals that you have. And I don't mean that at the expense of where you are, but it's really a win if you can advance both at the same time.
Thank you so much, Corinne. I think that this definitely answered the question for Jackie and for so many of us, to know when it's time to move on, how to look for those signs, and actually for the opportunities to see, whether within the same institutions or out of the institution. And my next question is actually for Robin, just as a follow-up. You have shared with all of us, your experience. You have had different roles, and the question for you is, out of all those opportunities and roles that you were able to perform, which one was the most challenging for you, and how do you really overcome that?
The initial one where I was trying to learn about technology, and patting the hands of folks who were psychologically traumatized because we were taking their typewriters. I was young and dealing with folks a lot older than me. So that one was challenging. And then I'd have to say this one, the CIO AVP role, because now the buck stops with me. So I only get the problems. Everything else that's, simply solved, someone else is dealing with. So I only get the really irate faculty who feel like we have offended their sensibilities, or the folks who are, really concerned, or the personnel problems in IT that, everyone else has tried to solve, and then trying to convince folks that we're doing what's best for the institution, communicating our objectives in a way that creates the kind of support I need to be successful. So you can tell, Dana used to be a CIO and she took the deputy CIO job. And I think I understand why now. because it's a little more challenging when you're the only one that everyone holds accountable for it. But I'm getting it. I'm getting better at it though.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. So the next question is actually for the two of you. And the question is, what are some of the significant hurdles standing in the way of increasing inclusion and diversity within IT and research computing?
I don't know about Corinne, but we're not getting applicants from diverse populations. And we're trying really hard. You know, as an institution, obviously we're sitting in the Shenandoah Valley. There's, you know, a lot of diverse folks here, but most of them aren't the kind of folks who are interested in higher ed or coming into higher ed. We're very welcoming. I don't think we always as a community have support systems for some of the more diverse people. So we've worked very hard to try to build that in partnership with human resources, but we're struggling to get those kind of, you know, we're struggling to get diverse students. So, you know, it just kind of comes along. So we're trying to build systems and support systems, mentoring programs. We've sponsored an awful lot of H-1B folks trying to increase that diversity. But in the last few years, any of you who've dealt with immigration know that it's not as simple as it used to be, and it's been a real struggle for us. So I think some of it is where we are, and we're trying to do the remote recruitment, trying to attract folks, you know, now that we post-COVID can operate in a more remote world, but it's still a struggle.
I agree with what Robin said around recruiting. I think, you know, from when you get to a point where you're hiring, you really need to focus on the recruiting into your applicant pools to make sure you're getting a diverse group of applicants to even apply. How I look at some of that, and I've spent some time trying to solve this problem or challenge. I've talked with a lot of our students who will be soon entering the workforce, as well as high school students. I volunteer an hour of code and different things. And what occurs to me is that a lot of young people or persons who are just entering the workforce, based on the limited understanding that they have of this career path and field, they exempt themselves. So they think highly technical, logical, computational thinking. They relate themselves to their peers and they think, ooh, you know, that's not for me. Where I think we need to change the message is that these professions welcome all types of thinkers. I want creative thinkers who can help us design solutions and solve problems. If you've ever tried to build consensus among users with competing interests, you know diplomacy is an art that is on full display in that room. I want project managers who can do that, who can build consensus and communicate effectively with people to get them excited about an effort or initiative. And then we certainly need those highly technical people who are logical thinkers, computational, to execute some of our technical products. But there's a place for everyone, for all types of thinkers in IT. And I think that that's the word that we need to spread, is that an IT or HPC, you know, any computing career, there's a place for everyone. And so, you know, encourage people to be interested, to explore what the opportunities are in this field, because they're not just for STEM majors. While we certainly welcome and need them, that you know, the modern IT organization goes so far beyond just the execution of technical work that you know, building that awareness to those who are entering the workforce about what role we play in the organization, I think will help bring some of that, bring diversity to the team. And then once you hear all the time that when you have a diverse and welcoming team, that's attractive to others and to applicants. And maybe that will help close the gap on that applicant and recruiting pool that seems very limited right now. So I think I would add.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Corinne. And I had to agree with you. Actually, you know, our committee, we have been having these conversations about the topics that we want to be talking about, and this issue of how do we create more diversity, right? What are the things, applicable things that we need to do as, you know, we work with other institutions to be able to bring and create that diverse environment, to be able to attract those diverse candidates, right? It is true, many of our institutions are really struggling right now with hiring and actually getting a diverse pool. You know, UVA is in that boat right now, trying to get, you know, more diverse candidates to come and join our team. And it's definitely a struggle. And this just, you emphasize the need that we have, you know, to bring that conversation to the front of what is that we need to do to change that, how we get and attract that diverse pool. And I think that this is just a great idea to, you know, for our next conversations that probably we're going to have in the spring, and to keep thinking about how we go about it. We have another question right now for the audience, and this one is from Tiffany. The question is about, for either of you, is about what traits do you look for in a mentor? And also, how do you approach someone to ask for mentorship if you do not have a relationship?
I'll start with that one. So when I'm not sure I've ever sought out someone to be a mentor, but that quiet, you know, kind of looking at them and then you attach yourself to them in some ways. You know, all of the people around us model behavior that we observe. Some of that, you know, over the years, I've picked qualities, traits that I admire. And I've also picked qualities and traits that I don't want to emulate from my own experiences. When you see somebody who makes you think, I love the way they run this team, or they get stuff done, or I admire that about them. You know, if you want to know more about how they do that thing, or just how they achieved some of, you know, whatever success they have, or attained a position that they're in, just ask. I mean, you know, hit them up on the side and say, hey, would you mind talking to me about that? Or would you share how you did this? And just be open. This is going to sound really ridiculous, but my son had a friend here not long ago. He's like 13. So I'm taking life lessons from a 13-year-old boy. But he said something that has been so profound for me over the last few weeks. He said, it's only awkward if you make it awkward. So it's not awkward, just ask. Like, it's cool, right? You know, it doesn't have to be weird. Just say, hey, can you give me a half hour and talk to me about this thing? And that's great. I mean, it's totally fine to put yourself out there about like that. If you see something or someone that you want to know more about, I think that demonstrates the willingness to self-improve, which is a fantastic quality. And as a professional, I mean, we all have so much to learn, and we can learn more. And so if you're willing to do that and be bold about it, I think that's awesome.
Thank you, Corinne. We have a hand raised right now from Sue.
Hi, I was just going to add to that. You might be surprised that the person you're asking might actually be really excited to be asked.
Exactly
To
right.
be a mentor. There's a lot of us that have been around for a long time, and we don't see ourselves that way, but somebody else might. And when they ask, you'd be like, wow, I didn't even, yes, of course. So don't be afraid. I'm just going to double back on that one.
I agree, Sue. I have asked people that were surprised and flattered. And for the same reasons Corinne laid out, you know, I would say you handled that situation, you know, with, you know, such skill. Would you mind talking to me about how you got to the point that was, and they're willing to do it. At least everyone that I've encountered in higher ed in particular would be willing to share.
And I would like to add that, you know, I am a big advocate for mentoring, for being a mentor and also being a mentee. And I have at least 2 mentors, you know, 2 at a time. I go and choose it depending, what is the things that I want to be learning. And this applies not just for my professional career, right? But it also applies for my personal life. And I have found that, the easy thing to do is just to ask the person, right? And Tiffany, you were asking about the traits that you look on, for a person. That will depend, right, of what is your goal? What are the things that you want to be learning? So let's say that what you want right now is to learn things more about leadership, right? So I go about looking in the community, who might be the person in a leadership role that can really impart wisdom, or give me some tips about how I go about growing that expertise. And the simple thing is send an email, ask them, would you have the time? And I think that what it works here really well is to be proactive and just go about creating, can you please meet with me regular basis once a month? Can you, these are the things that I would like to be talking about, and just send, kind of like, what is your plan? What are the things that you want to be learning? And don't be afraid to be specific, because a person that will be willing to mentor you will be going all the way with you, even to deal with the difficult questions about how you get from point A to point B. And I will highly encourage everyone here in the audience to, if you don't have a mentor yet, please do so. Just look for the specific things that you want to be learning. And for me, it has been just so rich to have mentors all throughout my career. And I want to encourage the audience, if you have more questions, please post them in the chat, or if you want to mute yourself and want to continue this conversation about mentoring, I think that is just key. It's one way to grow each other and start, pulling people up, by mentoring. I'll wait for someone in the audience to ask questions, and I'll jump to the next question that we have, and is also for both of you, Corinne and Robin. Apart from academia, what role do you see the computing industry and corporate world playing in making real differences?
I'll start with that, Robin. Unless you want to go first,
No, you go ahead, Corinne.
When I think about this question, I think about us as a profession. It's very common to see IT professionals, HPC professionals, data scientists traverse sectors, business sectors. So, a Unix engineer can be a Unix engineer in higher ed or government, healthcare, or in banking or finance in corporate America. And as such, I feel like we're in a unique position to be role models or leaders, to demonstrate some of these core values and beliefs if we have them across business sectors. So when you think, the question you mentioned in industry, corporate, we're everywhere. We're necessary, whether it's from small business who are relying on technology now, to those nonprofit industries or sectors, to for-profit, small to gross, global companies. We're everywhere. So if we can build that reputation of demonstrating deliberate actions around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that would be very impressionable to those groups around us, because it would be everywhere. So, apart from academia, my answer would be to demonstrate what those values, wherever we are, join groups that are encouraging the same across business sectors, and make it not just about, this is important in higher ed or this is important in corporate, but as IT professionals, as HPC professionals, as researchers, this is important to us as a profession, and, build momentum in that way.
Thank you, Corinne. Robin, do you have anything else to add?
I think she's got it. It's really difficult right now. When you have in society, lack of respect for science and intellectual pursuits. So, trying to humanize those things and show that technology really is people, and not all of them are really geeky people that you can't talk to. Because I think a lot of people interpret, particularly in high performance computing, you guys are really smart. Folks, not sure how to do that. So just show them you're human also. But I agree with her that there's a lot that technology can do to help, and balancing that, ensuring that we're still considering things like privacy. I think higher ed spends a whole lot more time, so you can use that things that we've learned about trying to deal with privacy and having things challenged, so that, folks are kind of wary of technology. Either they're totally ignorant of it and, don't worry at all and just use it without understanding it, or, they're just, too far, that it pervades everything. So I would agree with Corinne, just model it for everyone and let them see that higher ed's everywhere and diversity matters.
Thank you, Robin. And I have one more question before we get to Oren, but I want to read a comment that we have in the chat from Carla. She said, FYI, I have spent the last 3 months working closely with UVA workforce planning or local idea is the IDEA director to prepare for an oncoming recruitment for my team. From responsibilities to job description, language and career path consideration. It was really helpful, and I look forward to how it plays out regarding increasing diversity for our candidate pool. And if you want to talk more with her about the topic, she has posted her email in the chat, and we're going to add it to Google Docs if you want to look at that later. But please feel free to reach to Carla if you have some questions about, I think that going about how we post our jobs and the kind of language that we use when we are posting is one way to actually, to increase the pool of candidates that we might be attracting. And the last question that I have for you, Corinne and Robin, is, and this is actually one of my, I would not say one of my favorite, but it's a challenging one, and is what actionable steps might a member of our computing community take individually to contribute to diversity and equity?
For me, and this helps achieve goals in a more, or achieve realization of what's important to us in a more long-term way. But I always lean on volunteering. So again, the idea that people self-exempt from a technology path is so sad to me, because I've had so much fun doing it myself that I want other people to be encouraged to give it a try. And so whether it's, with a group on campus, or I go to middle school and high school and do Hour of Code, or helping a scouting group with a technology merit something, or Big Brothers and Big Sisters and facilitate some hands-on learning event, like volunteering to me, because often limitations around accessibility contribute to lack of diversity, equity, and not an inclusive environment, because people weren't exposed to the same opportunities. And so volunteering to reach all groups, regardless of what their accessibility is, make technology and the interest in technology accessible, so that there's interest in those learners of any age really become interested in this as a career, and they become applicants and candidates and then employees, I think is a great way that seems very actionable for everyone. We're all part of a community. There's always a way to volunteer if you seek it out. It's not this unattainable, lofty objective that you need a whole, infrastructure to execute. It's something that all of us can do. We can all volunteer around our expertise. So try it. You might love it. I do it. I love it.
Thank you,
That's
Corinne.
great. I would only add, support those folks who are already in your community, who are more diverse. Don't assume they're making connections and are happy. What we have found so many times that, you know, understanding cultures, reaching out to people where they are so that, you know, they feel support and don't feel more isolated. Like I said, at JMU, we've struggled with that. We've had folks who don't feel comfortable in the community. When something happens, you know, make sure that, you know, you're there for them and providing that kind of support day to day so that they feel like they have, you know, a community that's supporting them, whether or not, you know, you're directly engaged with them or not.
That's a great answer.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I just want to really thank you, Robin and Corinne, for your time. I think that this is a great conversation. You know, I wish we had more time than the hour just to continue, you know, with a little bit more of tough questions, you know, that goes into this concept of diversity and equity in the workplace. And, you know, and especially in this field that we add in technology too. And I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for you know, coming and bringing your expertise and sharing your experiences with us. We know that we have to continue the conversations and looking at how we can improve many of the challenges that we face today. We have an announcement that we want to make, especially for students that might be here. And, you know, if you feel like sharing too, I will appreciate that. And let me share that slide right now. I want to make you aware that our next event is actually scheduled already for January 31st of 2023. And I know it's crazy, we're talking about 2023, but we're almost there. And one of the things that we want to mention is that Virginia Women in HPC is looking for, well, we are creating a competition because we want to create our official logo. Right now, we have 6 institutions that are participating in the program. We are looking to see if we can find someone from ODU and also from GMU. Robin, we're still trying to find a person that wants to join the community officially and be part, you know, of the program. But we are launching our logo contest, and we have a prize of $500 that is being sponsored for Cambridge Computer. And we have to say thank you to Eric for, you know, going and looking for ways how to we can get some cash money for the winner. And so we're going to follow up through our mailing list. This is especially for students, but everyone is welcome to participate. I think that $500 doesn't hurt anyone. And we want to talk about our logo. We would like to have this as a deadline for our SC event, the supercomputing meeting that's going to be in Dallas. And if you are going to be there, please feel free to join and come and visit our booth. We're going to have a couple events there, a couple conversations talking about Virginia Women and HPC there at the booth, and we'll be happy to just continue the conversation. So feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm going to put our contacts right here. We are the University of Virginia, BCU, Richmond University, William and Mary, BIMS, George Mason, and Virginia Tech. So feel free to reach out of any one of the representatives that are part of the committee and that are part of the program too. And if you want to join, or would you like to know more about the program and ways how you can come and volunteer and how we grow this program, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating. Eric, if you want to add anything else before we end the meeting regarding the contest.
We're just gonna pull together, you know, a note about the specs and the information, and we'll try to get that out early next week. And once we have a chance to discuss the parameters, etc. So that's all I would add.
Thank you, Eric. And thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you January 31st, and please stay tuned for our next event. And if you want to send us recommendations or speakers that you would like us to highlight through Virginia Women in HPC, please feel free to do so. We are open to your recommendations and suggestions. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your time. And see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.